It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley. He has the morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. I don't. Here with you to discuss, well, whatever's in the news. And surprise, surprise, I wake up and boom, at 10 o'clock, it's like my head is mush right now. It's mush after looking at the latest court decision, and the Federal Trade Court issued a major ruling against the Trump administration last night, declaring that Trump may not unilaterally impose tariffs with an emergency law. They wrote here, quote, "The question in the two cases before the court is whether the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 delegates these powers to the president in the form of authority to impose unlimited tariffs on goods from nearly every country in the world. The court does not read the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to confer such unbounded authority and sets aside the challenged tariffs imposed thereunder." The court holds for the, I'm reading from the actual decision, the court holds for the foregoing reasons that the IEEPA does not authorize any of the worldwide retaliatory or trafficking tariff orders. The worldwide retaliatory tariff orders exceed any authority granted to the president by IEEPA to regulate importation by means of tariffs. The trafficking tariffs fail because they do not deal with the threats set forth in those order. The court said the challenged tariff orders will be vacated and their operation permanently enjoined. Now, immediately the administration appealed the order. Stephen Miller came out, and I don't know if he came out. I don't know. I just saw the comment. I don't know if it was on social media or whatever. I haven't had time to look. I've been trying to read through the entire court case, and I haven't had a lot of time to do it before we went on the air. So that's why I said the mind is mush right now. He basically said, okay, here go the court again. The only ones that can designate what the executive branch does does not do is Congress when it comes to the entire tariff thing. What I did find interesting, though, because the court did touch on this, and they made the point, and I'm trying to find, I saw some analysis on it that said they made the point. I found a short quote, but I haven't found like the entire paragraph around it, which I would like to find, that was making the case that even if Congress, as they have done in this case because they're Republican, doesn't challenge the president on what he is doing, or even if they say, because this is one of the things that's talked about all the time, Congress delegating their authority to the executive branch. The court, and I'll see if I can find it before the show ends. Like I said, this is the thing that's just stuck in my mind, and I've been searching for that, precise paragraph on it, not just the analysis with a little, sentence around it, that said even if Congress delegates their authority to the president or to the executive branch, there are limitations that they cannot necessarily do that. And I thought to myself, they may have a point there, but how far does it go? Reverse it, for example. Could the president say, I no longer want to be commander-in-chief, and I delegate that authority to Congress? Well, the president did it, therefore Congress now has it. And so in this particular case, you haven't seen Congress delegate the authority. They're just under Republican control, and haven't challenged the president either way on it. Democrats may want to, but Republicans have not. So I don't even know whether that applies in this particular case. But I did find that interesting because I think it's a fascinating constitutional question. That even if Congress says, you know something, we know the Constitution gives us the authority to do this, but we believe it also gives us the authority to delegate to the president that you have the authority because we're giving it to you. And it is an interesting question. If one branch of the government says, we don't want the responsibility, we're giving it to you, is that constitutional? And if it is, what are the limitations of that? Now, I'm asking questions on it, and I always let you know when I ask a question whether it's an attempt to lead you in a certain direction, and it's not. Those are just genuine questions that I have that I don't know. And I've never read, I'm trying to think, in all my time, researching all the different, legal issues that we talk about concerning the Constitution, whether I've ever seen that addressed. And so that'll be interesting to see where that goes. Now, the administration used the tariffs that Nixon put on. I guess it would, what would they call it? Import charge. He didn't refer to it as tariffs. And the court does address those things. And some of the things that were brought up, and we'll get you some of the actual quotes from the case that said that was different. Number one, Nixon put forth those based on very, very specific things that he was going after, and it was, after we left the gold system and everything else, and the especially, I almost said the European Union, which didn't exist at that time. I think it was Germany and somebody else who they believe were manipulating their currency, and the United States was having inflation problems, and there was a ton of stuff they were trying to do. But the tariffs were temporary, and I did see one article. I was reading one analysis of it, and they said it was temporary. And Nixon, in the order, put these tariffs are temporary. Trump hasn't done that. And so the reasoning of the court was that was done temporarily. And I did read in one analysis, and I've been trying to find it. I just haven't had time. I mean, when I woke up at 10 o'clock is when I saw this, so I've really only had about 20 minutes. And it's dominant. Well, I've had about 20, 25 minutes to analyze everything, and it isn't enough time in this particular case, especially with everything else I had to do and all the other topics that are out there that we want to address. And Eric isn't here to help. Eric, help me. But I found that they said that it was, Nixon said these are temporary tariffs. And like I said, I read one analysis that said those tariffs were never actually implemented. One of the things, and this is where I'm taking liberties here, and I don't know whether this helped influence the court or not in the direction that they went, saying Trump does not have the authority to do this. You can do things like freeze assets, but tariffs are not mentioned in this particular bill. And going back to 71, by the way, they didn't use this law didn't exist at that time. The law didn't exist. The law, I think it was the dealing with, I'm doing this off the top of my head. It was a law from 1917 about dealing with enemies of the United States Act. And so when I look at what might influence the judges, if you said this is a national emergency that has to be solved, as we know, the country that he's hit hardest is Canada. China he's hit, but he's hit Canada the hardest, as we all know. And did the court look at this and say, well, that's not an emergency? Canada is not an emergency when it comes to trade. Number one, it was Trump who did the deal with Canada completely. Trump and President Trump in the first term and his trade representatives, they did the deal. Congress wasn't involved. Nobody else was involved. Congress passed it, but the deal itself had to pass the approval of Trump. Everything. And even the things that weren't included in it that he complained about afterwards, that was part of the negotiation. We leave this out. We don't tariff these things. Or this is the tariff that happens after this. But the entire deal was done by him. And did the judges look at it and say, well, obviously it's not an emergency because we have a trade surplus with Canada, except oil, where Trump is demanding, and did it a couple of times, that they get that Keystone Pipeline back up and Canada get your oil back in here. Did they look at that? Did they look at the countries, for example, Great Britain, that we have a trade surplus with, and say, why did you put tariffs? If it's an emergency and this is your goal, why are you doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Your goal was, the emergency was this. Well, they're not part of your emergency, yet you put a tariff on them. The reason that the steel and aluminum tariffs and some of the tariffs on China were allowed to stay is because they used another law for that, which the Commerce Department had to do research on it. The president couldn't do it alone. The Commerce Department had to approve it and say, yes, these tariffs on this, because China dumping, or well, whoever is dumping out there, this is a legitimate response. And they used a trade law, a specific trade law for that already exists from Congress. Now, the bad thing about this is, last I saw, the stock market was up. Let me just check here quickly on this. But I think this may cause more confusion. You know, what happens, you know, on appeal, because this goes on appeal now, can they fast track it? The uncertainty still remains. Let me just check very quickly here for the latest. Okay, Dow futures up 565. Dow futures jumped 500 points as court blocks Trump's tariffs. So the majority have been blocked. Oh, and the other thing was Trump, when he talked about the 10% is going to stay for all the countries. It's going to be a 10% across the board, not temporary, but permanent. And they said that's also the difference between Nixon and what Nixon did and what Trump did. Now, they were different laws that they used, but the IEEPA specifically doesn't mention tariffs at all. We'll see how this goes. I have no idea how the courts are going to rule on this. I may after I do more research, but right now, I don't know. I'll be able to hopefully throughout the show do a lot of reading during the commercial breaks and let you know more specifics. I swear I haven't been drinking. More specifics of what is in the actual decision there. And last I checked, this is about an hour ago. I've just been too busy. I didn't see anything on Truth Social yet. Just the comments from Stephen Miller. So we got that coming up. More analysis on that. Ton of stuff. Oh, looks like, all right, they figured out maybe the pressure being put on by conservatives that the White House is going to be sending a rescission letter to have more cuts in the actual bill, in the big beautiful bill. And that had come up a couple of days ago. Stephen Miller was talking about you can't do it. And it was like, well, yeah, you can do it. The president simply has to say, here's what I want. And he sends it to Congress. Here are the cuts that I want. And that fits the rules and regulations that are needed at that particular point. And the president hadn't done that, as we had mentioned the other day. And a lot of talk about that the last 2 days. And then, boom, the White House announced they'll be sending that letter with additional cuts on Monday, which is good. So we got a great show. Got a pretty good show. We'll crawl along. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Logging miles during the hot summer months can put a serious strain on you and your truck's health. Did you know pollutants and allergens in the air outside can enter your cab through the HVAC system without you even cracking a window? That's why it's important to check those cabin air filters. Inhaling dirty and polluted air can cause distress if you suffer from allergies or a respiratory illness. Not to mention the distraction dirty cabin air filters can cause by blocking proper airflow to your AC system when you need it most.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley. He has a morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. I am here taking a look here at more of what the actual court decision did. Hang on one second here. Let me find it here. And what will happen next. This came from, I just saw this article from CNN. The court ruled in favor of a permanent injunction, potentially grinding Trump's global tariffs to a halt before deals with most other trading partners have ever been reached. The court ordered a window of 10 calendar days for administrative orders to effectuate the permanent injunction. That means the bulk, but not all, of Trump's tariffs would be put at a standstill if the ruling holds up an appeal, and potentially with the Supreme Court. Now, what they don't say is whether an appeals court could come in and say, no, okay, until this is adjudicated completely, that there is no permanent injunction. I don't know. This is a trade court. I don't know the difference between a trade court and specifically well, I know the difference between a trade court and a district court. As to what their authority is, but I don't know. Again, if they put a permanent injunction, why that would hold more water than anybody else trying to do it? I mean, can an appeals court come in and just say, "Sorry, you can't have it"? The order halts Trump's 30% tariffs on China, his 25% tariffs on some goods imported from Mexico and Canada, and the 10% universal tariffs on most goods coming into the United States. It does not, however, affect the 25% tariffs on automobiles, auto parts, steel, or aluminum, which were subject to Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, a different law than the one that Trump has cited for the broader trade and tariff actions. And in that one, that's where I read earlier that you have to get the approval of the Commerce Department. The Commerce Department has to research to see if somebody is in violation of trade law, and if the Commerce Department agrees with it, then the president gets to do it. The other thing here, we'll have more coming up here because I've got something else that I want to bring up that I thought was really, really interesting. It's one of the major core questions that I have, which is outside this topic right at the moment. And we'll get to that coming up. And this is the court stating that it doesn't matter whether Congress delegates authority to the executive branch. They can't do that. Coming up, we'll have that.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
All across America, I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. Looking at the decision from the International Trade Court, which is a federal court, by the way, and we were talking about the legal specifics of it. Gigi wrote me and said, as far as the precedent on presidential and congressional powers in delegation, the Supreme Court cases in recent years limited the EPA's powers, partly because Congress did not give them explicit authority to broadly regulate in the manner that they were. And you're correct. I don't know if the International Trade Court used that Supreme Court decision as a precedent. Again, I haven't been able to read the entire brief at this point, or decision at this point, but that's really interesting because we had talked about that a lot, where the Supreme Court said, look, if Congress did not specifically say he can use this, he can't. And now the court's saying this. The court's saying nowhere in the IEEPA, which is a law passed by Congress, are tariffs even mentioned. And therefore, if Congress did not do it, they implied that's what they're saying, but they implied even more than that. Let me just get to another analysis on this here. The part that give me 1 second here. Just read some of this from what the court said. CNN has reprinted parts of it. The court ruled in favor of a permanent injunction, potentially grinding Trump's global tariffs to a halt before deals with most other trading partners have been reached. The court ordered a window of 10 calendar days for administrative orders to effectuate the permanent injunction. That means the bulk, but not all, of Trump's tariffs would be put on a standstill. The order halts Trump's 30% tariffs on China, 25% tariffs on some goods imported from Mexico and Canada, and the 10% universal tariffs on most goods coming into the United States. It does not, however, affect the 25% tariffs on automobiles, auto parts, steel, or aluminum. As we told you earlier, that was actually under a completely different law that those tariffs were put in that needed Commerce Department approval. Stock futures went up on the ruling, been sitting about 500 points. I don't know if they're looking at it like I am, which it would be, well, wait a minute, I don't know if this solves anything or whether it just creates more confusion or more, I guess, curiosity of what will happen and what will the appeals court do, and will the permanent injunction be lifted? And so the lawsuit was filed by the libertarian legal advocacy group Liberty Justice Center in April, and represented a wine cellar and 4 other small businesses that claimed they had been severely harmed by the tariffs. The panel came to a unanimous decision, publishing an opinion on the suit, and also one by the 12 Democratic states that they brought against the Trump tariffs. Let me just see here. I want to get to the point here. I've been scanning so much during the break. I get lost. Trump implemented these tariffs without Congress by invoking the International Emergency Powers Act, which gives the president the authority to act in response to unusual and extraordinary threats. But the law does not include any mention of tariffs as a potential action that the president can take. He also cited that law for the 20% tariffs on China, the 25% tariffs on many goods from Mexico and Canada. The ruling said the Trump administration has not met the criteria for an emergency. The plaintiffs allege, the lawsuit also alleges the IEEPA does not give the president the power to enact tariffs in the first place. And even if this is the part here, this is the one thing I talked about earlier that got me. Here's the quote. That the IEEPA does not give the president the power to enact tariffs in the first place, and even if it was interpreted to, even if the IEEPA said the president can tariff when he wishes based on what he views as an emergency, it would be an unconstitutional delegation of Congress's power to impose tariffs. That's a quote. The IEEPA does not authorize any of the worldwide retaliatory or trafficking tariff orders. The panel of judges said in an order Wednesday the worldwide and retaliatory tariff orders exceed any authority granted to the president by IEEPA to regulate importation by means of tariffs. The trafficking tariffs fail because they do not deal with the threats set forth in those orders. So, fascinating. And what I find fascinating is the fact that, look, it's a well-known thing. It's talked about all the time. We've talked about it many times. Not just, for example, on trade or tariffs or whatever, but Congress ceding their authority to the executive branch. And I'll be honest, I've never really looked at any Supreme Court issue on this where somebody has filed a suit saying Congress can't do this. I don't know if the Supreme Court would agree with it. I just don't know but it's interesting because when you do the reverse of it, because you got the three branches of government. If the executive branch said, the president doesn't want his war powers anymore, he's going to cede it to Congress. Congress makes a decision of how to run a war. Can he do that? And it's a great question. And I'll be fascinated to see any of the research on the precedent of that. Has that ever gone to the Supreme Court? In a case that's crystal clear, where you have Congress saying, okay, and this isn't the case because Congress did not say in the law the president specifically has the right to tariff. They've just not done anything with him doing it. They've just, because it's a Republican Congress. If it was a Democrat Congress, it might be completely different. Nobody's filed suit. Nobody has said he can't do it. It's just boom. Now, there have been many that said you can't do it. I've never believed that this is an emergency under the IEEPA, and they brought that up too. We've had, because an emergency is something that's unusual, and they talk about it. This is an unusual and an extraordinary threat. That's actually in the actual bill. And they made the point, we've had trade deficits for 50 years. It's not unusual. It's not extraordinary. It's been happening. And so it's going to be fascinating to see where the appeals court goes on this and where the Supreme Court goes on this. Let us go to John in North Carolina. John, you're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi, John.
Good morning, Gary. How are we today?
Good.
What's up? Well, first off, go Bills. I like our chances this year.
All right. Well, you got to get Cook back. You got to get Cook in there. He missed OTAs today, but I think they'll settle that.
Boy.
I think they're not going to pay him $20 million, but it'll be interesting to see if
he's not worth that much.
Yeah, what's up? What's going on?
But on this federal trade court, it makes us look like a laughingstock around the world if you think about it. Trump put the tariffs on, and now all of a sudden, it's like a kid playing against both parents against each other. Daddy said I can't do this, but I'm gonna go to Mama. Mama says I can. So it makes us look like a laughingstock.
It makes Trump's negotiating position less than it was yesterday, because if he was close to a deal, a lot of these countries are going to say, well, the threats that he has put on us, aren't going to happen, and therefore we're not going to agree to this part of the deal. That will happen.
Exactly. It's basically all he's trying to do is say, okay, look, you tariff, take a Ford Mustang in Germany now. There's a 30% tariff and a VAT tax on it. You don't see Mustangs in Germany because Ford's not going to produce them for over there because they won't sell them. They can't. So he's just trying to level the playing field, as most people would say.
Well, but that's not the case with Canada. That's not the case with Great Britain. And I think the court probably looked at it and said, if you want to go after those specific countries individually for what they do and use the trade law that exists where you can authorize tariffs after the Commerce Department looks at it, you can do it. But you can't use this law to do it. Because Canada, as I said, he did the deal with Canada. Nobody else did. Canada's been the worst. He's hit Canada harder than anybody, and he's the one that did the deal. Every part of the trade deal, everything that crosses the border, Trump approved under USMCA. Everything. And Canada has a trade deficit with the United States if you don't include the oil, which Trump just last month demanded that they come and they set up and get the Keystone Pipeline going and get that Canadian oil in. So where's the emergency with Canada?
I really don't see one with Canada then. Honestly, I can't.
And that's the problem they're looking at. They're looking at the law saying that if he used the Trade Act, that right now, and that's why you've got still the tariffs on aluminum and steel and a couple of other China tariffs, is because they looked at it. He said, this is unfair. The Commerce Department looked at it and said, it absolutely is. Here's the reasoning why. And then Trump was able to put the tariffs on it, or the executive branch was able to put the tariffs on it.
Yeah.
But, when you look at it, go ahead.
He's basically, he may have gone about it the wrong way, but he's still trying to reduce the trade deficit we've been running for 40 and 50 years, which would be nice.
Yeah. Again, though, it's how you do it, and it's are trade deficits as bad as they are stating? Have trade deficits destroyed this economy?
No, Congress has destroyed this economy.
Well, I don't know.
Has destroyed this economy.
Well, you can say, for example, we have less manufacturing jobs, but
right.
in order to get those manufacturing jobs back here, this is hypothetical because I don't believe you're going to get manufacturing jobs back to the United States, and I think AI could change everything where the U.S. would be competitive because of AI. But hypothetically, it's going to cost the American consumer more. Because the only way manufacturing will come back is to charge American consumers more money to buy those goods. When you do that, you get less economic growth. And so that's the that's the problem when you look at it. And by the way, I have no doubt that Trump wants the exact same thing that we all want, which is a successful U.S. economy. This isn't like the Biden administration where they did everything in order to destroy the United States, to destroy the border, to destroy, for example, the ability for the United States to go after Islamic terrorists like Iran or whatever. Those things were just horrendous when you look at everything that the Democrats did. But here, when you look at it, I have no doubt the president's motivation to do it, but trade is a pretty complicated thing, and I thank you so much for your call, and go Bills. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric had some morning off. I don't. I am here. We'll talk more as we do more research on this International Trade Court decision, which puts a permanent injunction. We'll see where it goes because they've immediately appealed here. And if this thing gets fast-tracked to the Supreme Court, which I would like to see, because I think there'd be a great deal of even more confusion. I know the stock market's up right now, but there'd even be much more of a I think, confusion as to, okay, what do we do as companies? We don't know. How long is this court case going to take? Is a permanent injunction going to be there? How long will it be there? There's so many questions here to ask. I think our caller did make a really good point, though. He said on the and this was with the Biden administration. When the Biden administration, remember, the EPA just said we're going to regulate. Under the Biden administration, we're going to regulate CO2, and the Supreme Court came in and said, doesn't say you can do that. You just can't. The executive branch just can't come in and do that. Yeah, but we have a climate emergency. And they went, no. But we'll get to that and more coming up.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. Good morning. We are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. He has a morning off. I am here with you. And thanks so much for being here this morning. Just going over the International Trade Court, which is a federal court, by the way, and the decision to put a permanent injunction on the vast majority of the Trump tariffs against almost all countries. Just very quickly here, looking at a couple of other things about the response from the administration. White House spokesperson said in a statement that it is not for the unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency. You had Stephen Miller come out and post on X that the judicial coup is out of control in response to the news. I will say this, that there's a difference between the district courts and the International Court of Trade at this point. Here's the question. Number one, you look at the climate change emergency, which the Biden administration used, for example, to promote the fact that the EPA can do whatever they want because there's a national emergency. And the Supreme Court came back and said, nope, you can't. Is part of that precedent what has sent the court in this direction? I don't know. And that precedent was against the Biden administration. These are more questions and everything else. I'm still reading through the original document, which is like 50 pages long here. But I'm in the middle of a radio show trying to find and check all the precedents that they're actually using here, and I haven't found that at this particular point. But what is an emergency? And I did see, where was it here? Gary Huffbauer, a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, called it a surprising and spectacular decision. The reason it's a surprise is that if you look at the past cases where plaintiffs have tried to challenge the presidential use of extraordinary authority under various laws, the plaintiffs have always lost against the government. All the president had to do was say national emergency or national emergency. Those are the magic words. Now, I don't know if he relates at all the EPA case that Biden had, because they've been saying climate, it's an emergency. An emergency changes everything because it's a climate emergency, a climate emergency. In this case, again, courts did not question it. Our courts questioning it now. Can you just use it for anything? And the problem with using, again, Trump could go after each and every one of these countries individually under the Trade Act that exists already. But it has to be reviewed by the Commerce Department. And, that's the challenge. I don't know how the appeals court's going to look at this. I don't know how. I just hope it's fast-tracked and they come to a decision quick, because I don't think long-term that this creates any clarity whatsoever. And you need clarity in this situation. So, what was the other thing? This is from the actual ruling here. As they're making the case, the court is Nixon was very specific. It's temporary until this gets done, then it's gone. This is temporary for this to solve this problem. When you look at it, as we have always said, I look at Trump's intentions on a lot of things, and they're always really good. Where does he get himself in the most trouble? When he says things that judges can hear. For example, when he comes out and says, for example, these are the things, and again, I don't know whether these things impacted the judge or not. But when Trump comes out, and as we've said, he's been all over the place on tariffs. What is it for? Is it for fentanyl? Is it to get rid of the income tax? I think that could influence judges when you have the president come out and say, this is going to be beautiful, we're going to raise trillions of dollars, and we're going to be able to get rid of the income tax. Well, what you're telling the judges is, this isn't an emergency action. You want to do something that Congress is doing, which is Congress's authority to tax in a different way, and you're claiming that this is an emergency to do that. If he just said we're going to tariff these countries because they're involved in unfair trading practices, there's a law to do that already. It might take a few months to get the Commerce Department approval of it. But that's the problem that you face there. Then when he said it doesn't matter, because when he said, if everything isn't produced in the United States, there'll be a tariff. Everything, he said it, everything has to be produced in the United States or there's a tariff. So what you're saying is, I don't want any trade. A judge looks at that and says, was that a national emergency, or is that your economic theory or your economic hope that you wish to have? And if that's your economic hope, you don't get to do that. Congress needs to do that. So those are the things I think that would influence judges. If you came out and said, for example, as they did already, the steel and aluminum tariffs stay because the Commerce Department approved it and said, yeah, because this unfair trade practice is going on there, therefore you can retaliate. But this isn't specific retaliation. It's across the board. And that's where I believe the court is saying, you're saying it's across the board, whether it's a trade deficit or not. You're saying a capital deficit because we have a good surplus. We have a money deficit because the money's going there, the goods are coming here. And so you're saying that in itself, that's the problem. But then you admit that you don't want any trade to begin with. And like I said, when you're all over the place with what your goals and motivations are, where is the specific emergency that you need to articulate? That's why we've said everything needs to be concise when you do something like this. When you say it's an emergency, it's got to be crystal clear what your motivations are. And when the president comes out and says, well, we're going to replace the income tax with this, we're going to raise so much money, you're not saying there's a national emergency where you want fair trade. What you're saying is you want permanent tariffs on the American public in order to get rid of the income tax. That's Congress's. You don't get to do that. And so it'll be interesting to see where this all comes out, though. But the comparison to what Nixon did, but under a different law back then. But I can't wait to actually read and decipher the entire ruling here, which I haven't had a chance to do because I just saw it when I woke up before I came in to do the show, and I just didn't have time to go through with a fine-tooth comb every bit of it, but we're going to continue doing it during the show here and, see what we can get here. Anything else that I wanted to look at here? The Department of Justice lawyers argue that tariffs are a political question, meaning it's something that the courts cannot decide, but the plaintiffs note that the law makes no mention of tariffs at all. Said the plaintiff's lawyer, if starting the biggest trade war since the Great Depression based on a law that doesn't even mention tariffs is not an unconstitutional is not unconstitutional, I don't know what is. So we'll see where this goes. Also coming up here, Trump had what I saw was his toughest words at Russia the other day. So we will get to that. Like I said, more on the federal court and the tariffs as we get more information in. Massachusetts Institute of Technology gets rid of their DEI office. The whole thing with the Democrats and males. It was even Chuck Todd came out and said, you can't attack males for 2 decades and then say, how do we get them back? All you've done is attack males. You've spent, this is coming from Chuck Todd, you've spent 20 years doing it. And now you're wondering why they won't vote for you. So we'll get to that. What is the a new poll out on immigration. New Harvard-Harris poll: immigration enforcement remains Trump's strongest issue. And I love this headline: David Hogg tells an obvious truth about the Biden White House. We'll also get to more of that. You hear that mayoral candidate of New York, Andrew Cuomo, wants a $20 minimum wage in New York City. That'll save him. And AOC is fundraising on the concept of abolishing ICE. Oh, and there's another book out about the... Oh, okay. No, okay. It's not. It's the same book. I saw Intensely Loyal Jill Biden Aide Despised by White House Staffers. New book claims. I thought there was another book. See, the Jake Tapper book, to me, in my mind, is old already because it's been around. We've been talking about it for a month, but they're talking about the same book that talks about that. So we will get to that. Plus, the State Department says it will aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, which is a good thing, and a whole bunch more coming up. Plus, your calls and comments if you want to get aboard. Whew. Just rest for a second. I haven't even gotten a cup of coffee. That's how busy it is. I think I got a cup of coffee here during the break, and we'll get right back to it. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. Costs are not the same each month. If 9,600 miles are driven one month and 10,000 miles the next, 2 different sets of costs apply for each month. For example, if your tractor payment is $1,850 per month and you drive 9,600 miles in the month, your tractor payment is costing you 19.3 cents per mile. Drive 10,000 miles, though, and that same payment will cost you 18.5 cents per mile. This is one of your major fixed costs while paying off a truck loan. The difference in this example is only a fraction of a cent, which may seem like small change, but it ultimately amounts to $960 more annually on the bottom line. Because though fixed costs do not go down over time, you can reduce your cost per mile with more paid miles. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. I am here. Coming up on the bottom of the hour. Immigration enforcement remains Trump's strongest issue. Latest Harvard-Harris poll, we'll get to that. Plus, I haven't looked at all of the different polling out there. I have seen the Rasmussen polling on the president's favorability rating, which has been excellent. And the Rasmussen poll showing that for the first time in its existence, I don't know how long they've been around for, but the first time in their existence, America's going in the right direction, which is really interesting. But in the process of reading, going point by point on the decision of the International Trade Court and looking at page 9 here, where they talk about the powers granted the president under IEEPA, which, again, as the plaintiff said, does not include tariffs, and that's been a criticism from the very, very beginning. And they write here, the IEEPA provides the president may, A, investigate, regulate, or prohibit any transaction in foreign exchange, transfers of credit or payments between, by, through, or to any banking institution to the extent such transfers or payments involve any interest of any foreign country or national or a national thereof, the importing or exporting of currency or securities by any person or with respect to any property subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, may investigate, block during the pendency of an investigation, regulate, direct, and compel, nullify, void, prevent, or prohibit any acquisition, holding, withholding, use, transfer, withdrawal, transportation, importation, or exportation of, or dealing in, or exercising any right, power, or privilege with respect to, or transactions involving any property in which any foreign country or national thereof has any interest by any person or with respect to any property subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. The IEEPA further provides that these authorities may only be exercised to deal with an unusual or an extraordinary threat with respect to which a national emergency has been declared for the purposes of this chapter and may not be exercised for any other purposes. And that's in quote from the IEEP law is what they have. So when they say, I don't know if that means you could stop trade with a particular country. Is it importation or exportation? Or you could stop delivering to them in a national emergency, but it's also what that national emergency is. But even if it's a national emergency, it doesn't mention tariffs. It doesn't mention tariffs at all, as they have said. And interesting, the court said even if it did say tariffs, that would be unconstitutional. That I find a fascinating decision, because what's the limitation of it then? And will the Supreme Court look at that and say, even if Congress decides we're going to let you guys do it? It's one of the biggest criticisms of Congress right now, is that they've ceded so much authority, not just on trade, but a bunch of different other things, to the executive branch. And this court's saying, you can't do that. Constitution's a constitution. You can't say as a branch, well, we just don't want our authority anymore, we'll give it to the other branch. You can't do that. I find this fascinating because it's something that I've never talked about before or even thought about. I think we might have asked a question a couple of months ago on that. It was a question form, but this is just something recent for me in the law. And as a constitutional issue, I find it just fascinating. So there you go, and we'll continue reading it. We'll have some of the polling coming up. What's going on with Russia, the whole Biden thing. Oh, that thing's just blowing up. Every time I think that's going to die, it just comes back up again. And then the whole thing with Democrats and men. It's just the greatest thing ever. It really is. I have no idea where they're going to go. There's a bunch of articles written yesterday, too, about the Democratic Party. They're just all messed up. They're just completely screwed up. They can't get anything right. And it is true. I mean, they are messed up. And Elon Musk is officially gone. Not a lot of criticism. In fact, I didn't see any criticism from the Trump administration of what he said about DOGE. In fact, what we did see is that the White House said, okay, we're going to add some cuts. We're going to send our rescission letter to to Congress and tell them where we want more cuts. And that's how you do it in this particular case. So that's a good thing. It's at least going in the right direction. If Eric was here, I'd say, Eric, do you have great hope? He'd go, no.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And good morning. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off again. He returns for Sunday night, Monday morning show. We're here the rest of the week. Wow. Okay. First, let's look at some polling out there. Immigration enforcement remains Trump's strongest issue from the Harvard-Harris poll. When voters were asked to name the biggest and second biggest achievements of Trump's first 100 days, immigration-related issues came out on top, and it wasn't even close. 31% praised the president for stopping illegal immigration across the border, including 29% of independents. And 22% lauded him for deporting criminals, for which Trump received approval from 21% of the politically unaligned. Do the math, and you'll see that half of the respondents named either border security or criminal alien removals as Trump's biggest successes. Harris asked respondents whether they supported or opposed specific policies, and 2 immigration proposals scored big. 78% of voters like the idea of deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have committed crimes. 22% disapproved. Who are those people? Let me read that again. 78% of voters like the idea of deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have committed crimes. 22% were against deporting illegal immigrants who have committed other crimes besides crossing the border. 22% want them to stay. 70% favored closing the border with added security and policies to discourage illegal crossings. 30% don't want the border closed. Oh, my God. Aside from lowering prescription drug prices for Medicare recipients and low-income patients, by the way, just on another topic. Sad day for me yesterday. Very sad day for me. I started applying for Social Security. Very sad day. To look at that and see the Social Security. And the thing is, I waited. I waited till the end. You know, I'm not collecting it. I didn't collect it 66 years and 2 months. So I look at it, and there I am on my laptop yesterday, looking at a bunch of political YouTube videos. But I just see right across it, you are applying for Social Security. No! Now, the thing is, my first thought was, I want to be young again. And then I thought, no, I don't. That sucked. My nephew and my great-nephew have asked me those questions. So what's it like as you get closer to 70? It's great. They go, really? Well, except for my tendonitis in my ankle. And the sore back once in a while. Yeah, it's a million times better. They go, how? Why? When you know all the little worries you have right now and all the things you're worried about. Yeah, you don't have them when you get to be this age. That's a great relief. Hey, you know what else you've got at my age that makes it better? You want to know? Wisdom. Oh, really? Wisdom? Does that mean you're smart? Hell no. It means I've made so many damn mistakes that I've learned what not to do. I have failed so many times, I've realized what not to do. I just love it how wisdom, when you say, I've got lots of wisdom, and people immediately think, oh, what an elitist, like he's some kind of gene. No. Understand what wisdom is. I'm simply admitting that I was smart enough to learn after failing a billion times at a billion things. I finally realized, hey, idiot, don't do that anymore. That's wisdom. Experience. And I do get a great laugh out of it. But when I saw Medicare recipients, well, I mean, I applied for Medicare back when I was 65, so that was already done. I mean, I'm still on private insurance and always looking at what's better and what's cheaper, for me. So I have Medicare Part A, but not Medicare Part B yet. But yeah, I had to apply to Social Security. So when I saw Medicare there, I just went, oh, man. Lowering prescription drug prices for Medicare recipients. And that first thing I thought of was, there it goes. But aside from lowering prescription drug prices for Medicare recipients and low-income patients, 84% liked the idea, 16% disapproved. No other single issue was viewed more favorably by voters in the Harvard-Harris poll than deporting criminal illegal aliens. In that vein, 75% of those polled supported the administration's efforts to deport criminals who are here illegally. Democrats, you might want to be paying attention to this. You might want to be thinking about this, just something to consider. In that vein, 75% of those polled supported the administration's efforts to deport criminals who are here illegally, including 56% of Democrats and 75% of independents. And 63% approved of Trump's actions to close the southern border, including 61% of independents, but only 39% of Democrats want to close the southern border. Can't make this stuff up. This strongly suggests the administration will continue to prioritize the deportation of aliens with criminal records. And, the judge, what she did, the Wisconsin judge, the New Mexico judge, all of that. And we have said this before. The reason they keep going back to it is because, number one, it's a good policy. Number two, it's something that is landslide numbers for the American public. So there you go. The other thing I want to look at was just the favorability ratings, the job approval ratings, not the favorability ratings. And it's really interesting because it's tough to get any type of read on anything here. The only thing I have to say is, we've always talked about when you look at any polling out there, you look at the likely voter polls and you look at the registered voter polls. Let me just see here. Two of the the likely voter polls, Inside Advantage and Rasmussen, have Trump leading, and by pretty decent margins. Rasmussen has Trump approval 53%, disapproval 46%. And you've got Insider Advantage, again, likely voter polls, 55% to 44%, a spread of 11%. And you can look at, for example, Reuters poll that was done middle of May, 52% disapprove of Trump. It's all people, not just registered voters. It's just anybody you get, 52 to 42. So when you get the only other poll that has Trump leading was the beginning of May, the big data poll, registered voters, 48 to 47%. We'll just run them down for you here. Economist YouGov, disapproval for Trump, 52, approval, 56. Rasmussen, +7. Trump approved by 53%, 46% disapproved. Then looking at the spread, -2, Morning Consult. Qantas Insights, a tie. Daily Cause, -5. Insider Advantage, Trump +11. Reuters, Trump down 10. RMG Research, Trump down -2. Harvard Harris, Trump -1. Marquette, Trump -8. Daily Mail UK, a tie. Big Data Poll, Trump up +1. Gallup Poll, again, that's all Americans, not even registered voters or likely voters, -10. So there's a huge disparity because if you take the Rasmussen and Insider Advantage that are both likely voter polls, you're around 9. If you average them out, Trump +9. If you take all the other polls, it's probably Trump down. I'm just doing this quickly in my head. Trump down 6. So you're talking about a 15-point difference in polling. Which one is right? I'd say Rasmussen and Insider Advantage is close based on Rasmussen where they were after the election. I think Trump is up. I think Trump has probably some of his best numbers right now than he's ever had. And since the fact that he's out there every day talking, people know who he is. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But, yeah, somebody is wrong in the polling here. When you have that big of a spread, minus 15 points, some of these polls aren't accurate. I guess we could guess which ones, huh? Looking at inflation. Trump's approval rating on inflation. Again, it's all registered voters. There's not a lot of polls on it. You've got Economist UK, Trump down -16. Harvard Harris, Trump down -14. Marquette, All Americans, -32. CBS, All Americans, -24. CNN, registered voters, -24. So the disapproval there is huge. But, as we have stated before, Trump has a honeymoon on a lot of economic things to see how it happens. I mean, the polls show that also. But we're not happy where it is right now, but we're giving him the opportunity to fix that. How the whole ruling from the trade court's going to affect all of this, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting next month, maybe interesting next week. Does that permanent injunction stay? And if the permanent injunction stays, what happens at that point? Which means does Trump start going one by using the other law? And going country by country? We'll see. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I just love it. The story, I didn't even know about it, and I've been back to New York a lot. Mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo moves left again with a $20 minimum wage. The former governor's latest brainstorm is to raise the city's minimum wage to $20 an hour by 2027. The city's current minimum wage is $16.50 an hour. California Democrats passed a $20 minimum wage for fast food workers in 2023, and the result has been lost jobs in industry and higher costs for consumers. Eric and I remember, because we don't live in the bubble of today, when Cuomo first became governor of New York and was against the millionaire's tax. He said millionaires can move. They pay the vast majority of the taxes out there. If you put more taxes on them, they can easily move. They pay so much. And it's like, I think it was like 40%. I don't know what it was back then. But it was a huge amount. Because as we know, the tax system in the United States, the rich pay, the well-off pay almost all the taxes. The bottom 50%, as we know in this country, hardly pay any tax at all. Taxes are on that 50% and above. But he said, I can't afford to be a liberal here. And then he went along with it. He could not fight the Democrats, and he went along with it. So now he's just coming right into New York going, and this is where, if you think that these states are going to go conservative in any way, New York, Illinois, California, they're not. They may on some cultural issues because they're actually fighting parents. They're not fighting Republicans or conservatives or economics. But here, they just don't care. On economics, they just don't care. They just never get it on economics.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. Good morning. How's everybody doing? I realize it's a Thursday, which means we got all these audio cuts that we haven't played yet. Thursday and Friday lately has been just making sure we get in all the great audio cuts of the week. So let's start working through it right now. This was from yesterday, I believe, from the 5. And we haven't listened to a good Gutfeld rant for a while. And this is when they were talking to Jessica Tarlov, and the Democrat, the token Democrat on the panel. And she was talking about all the cuts, and how horrible the cuts are in the big, beautiful bill. And he responds. Here we go.
No, the funny thing is the reason why there's so much opposition to the bill is because it didn't go far enough. This is not about spending. I mean, you're saying this bill is awful because they're going to be cutting. We have to cut. We are heading toward a we're in a doom spiral.
But it balloons the deficit.
I'm saying that, but that's not why you're mad about it. You're mad that they might cut something, or they might cut taxes, and they might cut Medicaid. I'm saying is you should be mad that they're not cutting more. In terms of cutting Medicaid, let's be honest about the Medicaid stuff. This is about able-bodied young men and illegal immigrants. So push that aside and talk about the fact that you and I don't like the bill, but I don't like the bill because it's not going to stop the apocalypse. You don't like the bill because you want to press on the gas and go right off the cliff. Those are two different attitudes. We need to cut the deficit, not raise it. Can I talk about the shadow cabinet?
Please.
Okay. What is this story called? I know it's not summer. It's a
clickbait story?
It's a summer clickbait story. No research, no reporting at all. As for a shadow cabinet, we already had one. It was 4 years under Biden. It was a cabal. It was responsible for the auto pens and the EOs. They had a shadow cabinet and kept Joe in a real cabinet while Kamala was at the liquor cabinet.
And that was the story that we brought to you yesterday about Politico saying, well, what the Democrats need to do is have a shadow government. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like, really? And it was like, get Hollywood celebrities that will be part of the opposition candidate. We'll get Democrat politicians and we'll get Democrat entertainers. I mean, it was so ridiculous. We did it at the last portion of the show yesterday. It was just hilarious. We're like, God, you're just bankrupt of any ideas at all. So what they're saying is we need more celebrities and Democrats screaming at Trump. Let's, try something new. And as for the big, beautiful bill, what I'm happy to see is the only talk that you're seeing now, even from the White House now, even from the Trump surrogates, where nobody was talking about no one. In fact, just 2 days ago, everyone was talking about the Democrats. You had Mike Johnson out there saying, well, the problem is this actually does cut, but the CBO won't say that there's 3% growth, and we're going to have massive growth, even though we haven't had 3% growth since at least 2000. And they put it at 2.6. And normally when you see the CBO or anybody else, they always tend to have it more economic growth, because economic growth shows how much tax dollars are going to be coming in. But Gutfeld is a great point. Democrats are screaming that, see, you're increasing the deficit at the same time that they're screaming about any cuts at all, even to able-bodied males collecting Medicaid. Because that's what they're screaming about. You're cutting Medicaid. What are they cutting? Able-bodied males. Why are you angry about that? But I'm just happy to see everyone, and I'm glad to see that turn. I don't know what type of effect it's going to have. We know it's having one effect. The White House will be sending a DOGE rescission package to Congress on Monday. That has been talked about. Well, the White House sort of dug that hole themselves when they had Stephen Miller out there saying, "Well, we can't do anything. We can't do anything. And we can't do anything. We really can't cut. You can't cut the discretionary spending." And then it was brought up, well, certainly you can. During the rule process here, all the president has to do is send a letter over as to the things that he wants cut and how much he wants cut from it. So they sort of force their own hand to do it, in my humble opinion, which is great. But this was on Kudlow yesterday. They had Trump budget director Russ Vought on talking about the first cuts will be to foreign aid, USAID, and NPR. And beneath it, you'll see these are the Trump surrogates now that weren't even mentioning as we have been. What about the cuts? What about the cuts? And now they're all on the cuts. It's like, good. As I said before, if Eric was here, I'd say, Eric, do you have confidence that there's going to be... I can see him. I'm looking over to where he normally sits, and I can see him just shaking his head going, all right, they'll do something, but it's not going to be anything. We'll see. I'm going to remain the optimist here, or the gullible. One or the other. But here's part of that conversation yesterday.
So, rumor has it that we got a big rescission package, an Elon Musk DOGE rescission package coming up. Can you confirm it?
I can. We'll be sending that up on Monday or Tuesday whenever the House is back in session. They will get our first rescissions bill. And again, this has been proposed and we've talked about it. We want to make sure that Congress passes its first rescissions bill, including the DOGE, and we will send more if they pass it. And so this is the first one is foreign aid, USAID cuts, many of the waste and garbage that was funding not only wasteful but hurting our foreign policy, but also the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and NPR.
There you go. So we started. And we'll see where it goes. Let's hear from Senator Ron Johnson, who, I mean, look, you've got some members of the Senate saying, look, there's no reason, and it is true, there's no reason why we shouldn't be going back, inflation adjusted, to 2019. Why those spending levels skyrocketed and they stayed there. They shouldn't stay there. Go back to 2019, take into account inflation. Here's Senator Ron Johnson on that yesterday.
It would literally be reasonable to go to 5.5 to 6. That's what Bill Clinton, that's what Obama spent, plus up for inflation population. I don't think we were spending too little in 1998 or 2014. You always hear about zero-based budgeting, right? They're not serious about it. I'm proposing a $5.5 to $6.5 trillion base budget, and they're basically throwing the towel in on that as well. So, again, we've got enough senators that are going to dig their heels in. My guess is the only way we accomplish this is in two-step process. Let's focus on the parts that we agree on. Let's take an automatic tax increase off the table. Let's give President Trump some relief on the debt ceiling probably into the next year. By the way, that will be a massive amount. That will be about $2.5 trillion just to get us into the first quarter of 2026. That ought to shock everybody, but that would keep pressure on the process to, again, get serious about spending reduction and deficit reduction.
So you will vote to raise the debt ceiling if, in fact, you get these spending cuts that you're talking about?
Absolutely. All I've asked for is a commitment to a pre-pandemic level spending and a process to achieve and maintain it. We've never had a process to control spending. Don't have a balanced budget requirement. The appropriation committees didn't work. Budget Act didn't work. Simpson-Bowles didn't work. The only thing I can see is a very business person's approach, line by line, expose the grotesque waste and fraud and abuse. My guess, Maria, you go through $7,000 billion of spending, you'll be able to eliminate hundreds of billions people wouldn't even know other than the grifters who are sucking down that waste, fraud, and abuse.
All right. Johnson Musk 2.0 there. That's what we were told, that we get at $2 trillion, $1 trillion. It ended up $150 billion. And then they didn't make all those cuts. And as we know, really nothing in this bill. I like the goal, but he's never going to get to 2019 spending. That should be the goal, and you should promote that over and over again. Not going to get there, but as he said, even if we just want to get to next year, a year from now, $2.6 trillion in debt increase, which means that's going to be the deficit between now and next year. That's where we're headed. And he is talking about a two-step process now, where it's not one big, beautiful bill anymore. That hasn't been discussed a lot. Now, we'll admit, he did say this on Sunday. I don't know where he is now. But he posted this from Sunday. Ron Johnson posted this yesterday. Posted it about, 10 in the morning yesterday. So he wanted this out there yesterday. So I'm assuming he's going by that same one. So you have some senators talking about it. I don't know what they're going to do in the House. I don't know what's going to happen on this right now, but you're seeing the mess that exists right now because of the spending that we have in there, the incredible spending. I don't know what they're going to do. There's been no talk. I know they all agreed in the Senate. They passed a bill for no tax on tips, and that passed unanimously. Every Democrat voted for it. So don't know about overtime, where they're going to go on that, and don't know about the deduction for Social Security. They just want to tax us old people. I'm playing victim here. Why do I have to support everybody? Why is it me? Why is it poor old me? That is what you call victim virtue signaling. Then again, remember, maybe I do have a point. Remember when the Republicans had their tax cut in 2017, I had to pay more, and so did Eric. Because the problem in this country was Eric and Gary were not paying enough. Now, I don't know if it was after they raised it. Yeah, I think it was after they raised it, where a guy called us and accused us. We have to say accused us of being billionaires. We said, what? We said, billionaires? Are you sure? He goes, yes. You guys are billionaires. I go, well, okay, that's news to us. I think there was the one time where I went to look at my net worth. You know, that exists, you put somebody's net worth in, and mine came back as like $400 million. It's like, that's not there anymore. I couldn't find it. I checked a couple weeks ago. My net worth, I'm like, really? $400 million? How the hell did they figure that one out? Yeah. More audio coming up. We've got tons of it that we've got to get through before tomorrow. Plus, we'll have some comments to the audio, of course, that we're also playing. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. All right, more audio here. This is Chuck Todd talking about the push, and this is really being mocked all across the board. Even liberals in the media mocking the whole thing about the $20 million effort to figure out how to speak the proper syntax in order to get men. We need to get men. We need to get men. How do we do it? How do we do it? And it's really the talk of the legacy media. Here's Chuck Todd on it.
They're having to use anthropologists to figure out how to appeal to young white men. How do we talk to this strange and breed of American citizen that we've never wanted their vote before, but now we do? Sorry, I don't have that New York Times article, the Project Sam. You just... I mean, you're like, are we sure this is not an Onion article or a Babylon Bee article, right? Like, it's right out of it. It is laughable, but I'll tell you, they did this. I remember a staff member of mine. I told this with Saliza earlier today, Matt. I remember a staff member. This was during fall of 16. Hillary Clinton was doing a rally, and it was like, I'm going to be the president for African Americans and Latino Americans, and she just went down the list, right? You just pick your identity group, and she went down young American, da 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 da. And my staffer goes, well, she doesn't want my vote. She didn't ask for my vote. I mean, he's a white male.
Yeah.
She didn't ask for any man. The only and so it was just sitting there going, and now you're like, oh, we've got a problem. Well, you spent 15 years essentially ignoring that vote. And in fact, not only ignoring it, interest groups going out of their way to marginalize that demographic group. And then you're shocked when that demographic group doesn't think the Democratic Party wants them to be members.
I'm sorry, but it goes back to the whole victim oppressor thing that if you've been a long time listener to the show, we've talked about for years. And we said this is going to be a problem for the Democratic Party. You cannot practice identity politics, which is judging people by groups and not individuals. And you do that because you want one group to be victims and you want the other group to be what? Oppressors. Whether it's class, whether it's race, whether it's sex, whether it's sexuality, whatever. And then you keep expanding it and expanding it and expanding the number of victims because you believe if you expand the number of victims and you say government's here to help you, well, then you can unite your political party with all victims. What they forgot about was that as you expand the number of victims, you expand the number of oppressors. And what you do is you divide one against the other, which is where the Democratic Party is right now. And this is when the radical transgender movement really came to the forefront in the Democratic Party. And we warned you, Democrats, you can't say you weren't warned. We here at Red Eye, a guy by the name of Eric and Gary, we warned you. And what happened next? All of a sudden, Martina Navratilova, who was viewed as groundbreaking in liberal land because she was one of the first athletes to come out as gay. She rejects the radical transgender movement, and all of a sudden, she's some kind of right-winger. You got to get rid of her. We use that as one of our greatest examples, but you look at that right now, I mean, the insanity of that, the insanity of the radical transgender movement, the misogyny. Think about this. The Democrats embraced, when you actually put it this way, it's like, oh, didn't think about that. The Democrats actually embraced an agenda that destroyed feminism. Feminism is gone. Liberal feminism is extinct. When Gloria Steinem came out and said, nah, I believe in the radical transgender movement. We believe that men should be playing against women in sports. We don't believe that women should have their private places. Women need to get used to male genitalia. I'll never forget that day when she came out in favor of it, and Eric and I said, we've been warning liberals this for 10 years. This is what's going to happen. Well, the same thing with men. Men are the problem. Everything is the patriarchy, the patriarchy, the patriarchy. Now you want the patriarchy's vote?
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. You and me, 866-90 Red Eye. Download our Red Eye Radio app today because you can then listen to our show whenever you choose. So just chuckling here because it's getting to the point by the end. I can't wait till tomorrow to see how Democrats analyze the entire, how do we get men to vote Democrat? The $20 million. Is it the proper syntax? You know, should we stop using certain type of words? How do we get them in? And to have Chuck Todd say, what the hell are they talking about? They've been playing identity politics. Men are the oppressors. Men are the patriarchy. You know, the whole thing is about the Democratic Party. You know, feminism became, you don't need a man. A man isn't, you know, the men are evil. And now, after demonizing men, they're like, what are we doing wrong? Stop insulting them. Look, any human endeavor has faults. And we all know the Republican Party is not perfect. The Republican Party does things that many of us, you know, don't like. At the most, any political party, for most of us, you could look at it and say, well, I agree with 70% of it. Or you could say, I agree with 50% of what they believe strongly. I believe in 30% is pretty okay. And 20% I think is just pure horse manure, right? But you can look at it and you can say, but what are they doing? The Republican Party has said, here are the issues. Join us. They're universal. Right? That's what they do. And you look at it, you've got a ton of people that vote Republican that look at it and say, yeah, but on the top 4 issues, I'm with them 1,000%. The other ones, maybe not that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. But I'm there for the issues. I'm there because they believe this. And so the outreach from Republicans, especially the last few years, has been, this is what we believe. This helps you. And the Democratic Party, year after year after year, promoting the fact that you're a victim and can't make it because you're in a certain demographic identity group. People have gotten sick and tired and said, you know something, you've been telling me that for the longest time and that you're going to make my life better, and you haven't. And I believe the first part of that was during the Trump administration. We saw that with minorities. And during the Trump administration, the acquiring of wealth for minorities was like historic proportions, raising incredibly fast. That's all people want. That's what most people want. Most people know they got to work for a living, but if they work for a living, they want to see some benefit out of working for a living. And if they're working for a living, and wow, here we go, this is here. And as I told somebody earlier, Trump on tariffs, I may not agree with the way he does everything that way, but I know he wants to do the best for America. And people sense that. And when you're involved in identity politics, when you're involved in racism, when you're involved in judging people by groups and not individuals, the left may have had their indoctrination in many places, but in a free society, that indoctrination a lot of times reach a point where people just say, this is ridiculous. Young people rebel against what the establishment is. I did. I was talking about that to someone earlier. I was talking to Ron earlier when I came in, and I said, I drove in, and coming out of my speakers was The Who. And it was We Don't Get Fooled Again. And I was just scanning around, and there it was right there. And I had to sit in my car for 20 seconds just to get to the part where they say, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Why? Because I remember I was a kid when that song was popular. I was a teen. And when that came out, I rebelled against authority. It's what I did. You told me to do one thing, I'm going to do another. That song related to me. And young people look at it and say, I'm just not going to blindly abide by something. Many have. And that's why you've created the insanity and the delusion of the left in this country, because that's what it is. But a lot of people revolt. A lot of young people revolt and say, that doesn't benefit me. But when you look at the insane positions that they take, how do you unite? How in the hell do you unite a group of people? Because that's what a political party's job is. How in the hell do you unite by saying biological men can be biological women if they say they are, and if you question them, you're a bigot? Because men should be able to go into women's private places, and you as a woman, you should just get used to male genitalia. You don't have any private places. And if you don't like it, we'll threaten and intimidate you. That's how you pull a political party together. I'm amazed that the Democratic Party can still keep women with the radical transgender movement. And we've said to women, what the hell are wrong with you? For the Democratic women that abide by this, and every one of them, even, like I said, feminism was destroyed by men saying they can be a woman and men defining what a woman is. Feminism was destroyed by men saying, hey, ladies, you don't have a private place. Get used to our genitals. And if you don't, you're a bigot. And so you turned off a ton of people, but there's still a core of women, because that's still where it is. And they're college-educated women. They're the liberals today that have probably got the most indoctrination, that probably, I don't know what they view themselves when it comes to being a feminist now. But if it is, it's the most bizarro form of feminism ever. Oh, yeah, I'm a feminist. What do you believe? Men should take over. That's how you build unity. But I'm kidding. But when you have the radical transgender movement and when you have identity politics, what do you think you're going to get? A political party has to eventually unite. And what do you unite on? You unite on a set of issues where you say, yep, say what you want, the Republican Party. What has the Republican Party been the last year? 80-20. We all know what that means. You pick the huge issues that can affect people where they can feel it individually, the 80-20 issues, and you pound it and you say, that's what we're for. And if you're for that, come along with us. And that's why they won. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party was promoting insanity and delusions. Everything from the border is secure to the president's fine. What's your problem? The president's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. Why, my God, it's just the right-wing conspiracy. That's what it is. The president's fine. Yes, he's a president that can't answer questions for over 30 seconds, but he's fine. No, he can't have a coherent sentence, put a coherent sentence together, but he's fine. A political party has to unite. That's the purpose. And what do you unite behind? You unite behind issues. That's the problem for the Democrats. They're insane on the issues. Insane. Then I read this article here. CNN host warns Democrats must actually get rid of some sacred cows of far-left ideology, not just talk about it. CNN host Abby Phillips warned that if the Democrats want to win back voters, they will need to risk offending their consultant class base with concrete policy changes. And the article goes through, the Democratic Party remains divided on how to move forward. That's been the discussion, and some of the most fun articles and audio cuts to read and play over the last couple of days. On Tuesday evening, a panel of CNN discussed the New York Times report claiming that Democrats are spending $20 million on a study called Speaking with American Men, a strategic plan. Speaking with American Men, SAM. The study is purportedly a project to study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in the spaces of male voters. Whatever the hell that means. The panel spoke about how Democrats lack their own equivalent of podcaster Joe Rogan and how he gradually went from a non-political figure to becoming prominent in the MAGA universe. CNN correspondent Haddis Gold said one idea she had seen pitched is a sleeper podcast where they just help fund the podcasters, let them do whatever they want, really build up that base. It has nothing to do with politics. And then in a few years, sort of seep into politics just like Rogan. However, she argued such an idea probably wouldn't work. The only way that works is through authenticity, and you're not going to make it work by building up these funds and in any way being connected to a political party, because the political party, especially Democrats right now, don't exactly have a good brand people wish to be attached to. Abby Phillips said Democrats need to have actual substance to their reform. Okay, but here's the thing. They're going to have to, you alluded to this, Phillips said, as she pointed to former Biden White House official Dan Coe, who called to take positions that may offend parts of the party. They're going to have to get rid of some sacred cows. That's going to be the hard part. Everyone talks about authenticity until the rubber meets the street, and they actually take positions that the activists, the consultant class, does not want them to take. I don't think they will. CNN commentator Shermichael Singleton, a Republican strategist, said, for Democrats to eventually target men of every color, they're going to have to drastically change some of their positions, especially the cultural stuff. I don't think that's going to happen. I agree. Plus, you have to stop insulting men. That's our advice here on Red Eye. Stop insulting men and having them as oppressors, but you can't do that because if men are no longer the oppressors, then you lose a whole ton of victims. Oh, my gosh. This is a fun topic. It really, there's so much humor in all of it that even, like Chuck Todd saw. We don't. What do we do to get these strange beings and these they're like creatures from another planet. These men that we've insulted and called the patriarchy and called evil and called everything else. How can we continue to insult them and to get them to come aboard at the same time? All right. 866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley. He has a morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. I'm here. Coming up following the top of the hour, FBI examining COVID-19 origin cover-up amid new strain. That's the headline there. We will get to that here in a little bit. Some audio, Jake Tapper. and the new book. And I know that there have been some complaints by some Republicans and conservatives saying he shouldn't be making money off the book. I really don't care about that. All I care is that the information comes out and it leads us closer to the truth. How it happens, I guess I obviously I can recognize the hypocrisy of Jake Tapper here with it. Yeah, because he enabled the entire thing. And as we've said earlier, he has no, as he said, I just had no idea. Well, then get out of the news business. I don't buy that, by the way. I don't buy that he had no idea. I think he's lying about that. And, of course, I think part of the book is to CYA himself and others out there in the media. It's not going to work, but that's part of his goal. But I just want to get as close to the truth as possible. And we'll hear from James Comer about getting closer to that truth.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. Good morning. All right. We'll get back to the audio cuts here because we've got a ton of them and some analysis of everything going on. But here we are. A lot of graduations going on, a lot of graduation speeches, as we know. Summertime is almost here for all of us. When I lived in New York, school got out like middle of June. It's already out in areas here in the South. So, yes, vacations are starting. And this happened yesterday. Starting yesterday, Southwest started charging customers $35 for one checked bag and $45 for the second, unless you hold an airline credit card or have elite status. Southwest announced the change in March, but had not previously specified how much it would cost to check bags. It disclosed the fees in a message to its employees. The new fees are similar to what Southwest rivals charge, though some charge more for those who don't pay for bags in advance. Southwest passengers at the highest loyalty status level will still be able to check 2 bags free of charge. Those with the airline's credit card or next level of status will get 1 bag free. Now, I fly with American most of the time because they fly direct nonstop where I want to go, especially Buffalo. And it's, every day when, go see my dad. And that's been for the last 15 years or so, really, on a consistent basis when my mom started getting sick. So I've been up there a lot. And so I've got the credit card. I've got elite status. I think I get 27 checked bags for free. Maybe I'm exaggerating just a little bit. I never check. I never check anymore. I have not checked a bag in 15 years. It just takes too long when you get back to DFW here. You can wait 45 minutes. For example, tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm flying out in the late afternoon and get in early evening. I stay there just for one day, and I'm heading back, and I think it's the flight that leaves like 7:30 from Buffalo, gets back here at 9:50. I don't want to wait. I want to go right, boom. I want to just go right to my vehicle. I hate waiting. That's the worst wait. One thing I hate in life, anybody who knows me, I hate waiting in line. I hate it. I would do everything online if I could. And most things I can, which is great, because I've just, in my entire life, there's a line, I'm like, no, forget it. Not going to do it. But you'll get $1 million at the end of the line. I don't care. How long do I have to wait? 5 minutes for $1 million? Okay. 45? No, you can take it. Step in for me. To show you how I am, and this goes back a few years ago, my brother was just, initially he was very surprised when I said to my brother, you've been such a great brother that, something, I'm just going to give you this gift. How about if I buy you some golf clubs? Here's these beautiful golf clubs because you're such a wonderful brother. I told him my brother John. He looks at me. Yeah, they're really nice. Like, what the hell's going on here? Oh, you want to use these when you come back, don't you? You don't want to check your baggage. You don't want to check golf clubs. Because I could check them for free, too. I could check the golf clubs for free. It's like, yep. I've got this bag that I used to carry when I used to travel, and I would carry my golf clubs. And things like it looks like you've got a torpedo or a rocket inside there. That's what the carry-on, or not the carry-on, the check-on bag looks like. I'm like, nah, I just don't want to do it anymore. I'd rather just buy you a set of golf clubs. You can use them. And he said, what if we golf together? What do we do? And I said, well, there's a bunch of old clubs at Dad's house. There's a couple of old bags. We'll just grab that. We won't use that. We'll just use the good clubs. Because when you go golfing, you may not know this, when you go golfing, everybody has to have their own clubs. So we'll just bring 2 bags, but we'll just use, he goes, you got a deal. That's it. All right, no problem. Yeah, I absolutely hate checking baggage. And I've had it, especially when I used to connect. I'd get there and I'd wait 45 minutes. There's nothing. So and I'd have to go to the oversized section. And I said, and they let that out last. Everybody, all the baggage is on for regular people. If you're a golfer, which means you're not a regular person, you have to go to the oversized bin. And that comes out, it always did for me. It came out last. So I'm waiting like 50 minutes for it. And then nothing would come out. And they'd say, oh, you came in from Chicago? Oh, well, you know something? You had an hour wait, so we put the golf clubs on the earlier flight coming in. So your bag is over in terminal 9,433 miles away from you, because that's how big DFW is. That happened to me a couple of times. I'm like, okay, I'm done. That's it. So, yeah, but they're charging now at Southwest. $35 for the first bag, $45 for the second. The other thing I read about airline travel, TSA is soon going to be having a new line. Apparently, they have it already at one of the New York airports, not Newark. They have no technology at Newark. None. They communicate with styrofoam cups and a string. No, that's not true, Gary. But they're going to have a new TSA line. It sounds like I'm being sarcastic here and making something up. I'm not. A line where you just show your face. Like right now, you have to give them. You give them your ID. You don't even show a boarding pass anymore. You give them your ID. They take they stand in front of the camera and then boom, you're through and they know by your license whether you're TSA pre-check or whatever. Oh, that's the other thing before we get to the other thing about TSA. I didn't know. I became and I get it free from my credit card, my airline credit card. The TSA, the 5 years, I think it's like $85. They pay for it. I finally got it last fall. I did not know. I mean, this is the ultimate in first world convenience. There's first world problems and there's first world convenience. Not having to take my shoes off to go through TSA is like I won $1 million. I am so happy when I go through and my shoes are on. I'm like, I don't have to go to the chair. I'm Uncle Leo. I'm old. I don't have to go down and sit. I've got to sit down to put on my shoes. I don't want to go through all of that. So, yeah, that's one of the great things. But apparently they're going to have a new line, and you can opt in and opt out of it. But it's where they just scan your face. That's it. No ID. They just scan your face. You go right through. Your face will tell them what your boarding pass is and everything. Yeah, there's the privacy concerns that, they may use it for something else, and so they claim they won't, so you can be guaranteed they will. Thank goodness I'm close to death. Well, I'm closer than a lot of people. So I'm going to say, oh, my God, he's terminal. No, I'm not. I'm closer to death, so the privacy concerns are less because I won't be around. Why am I laughing? All right. So there you go. But that's interesting. But they say you would be able to opt in and opt out. If you don't like it, you can opt in the regular one. But you're getting your picture taken anyway. Or, I don't know if it's your picture being taken, but they're examining your face to make sure it matches your license. But apparently everything's in the system. And they say once they set it up, they're going to set it up at the big airports first, which means DFW will be one of the first to get it after. And I forgot which New York airport has it already, they said. But it's just you will just walk through and, let's scan your face and there you go. You're on your way. But I would still still bring your ID, passport, whatever with you. But you don't have to show it. And that's a pain for me. Everything, as I find out now, everything is about convenience. Everything is about not having to stand. I could bring in my aches and pains. The worst thing is, and anybody who's getting older, this. I can go out and I can golf. I'll get a little bit of, back soreness, whatever. I can walk. And I can walk significant distance. I can hike a few miles, whatever. I've tendonitis in my ankle. But the worst thing for my back is standing. That's the worst thing in the world. Just standing. It's like, All right. Enough of the aches and pains. Coming up, the FBI examining the COVID-19 origin cover-up. Trump was asked, does he believe Putin actually wants to end the war? And he responded. And I have one of the best things ever said, one of the best observations ever given by this particular person who is a pollster, does focus groups and everything else. It's Frank Luntz. And he was at West Point to watch the president speak. And you want to hear this. We'll play this coming up following the bottom of the hour. It's really, really, really good. He did an interview on Bloomberg, and they tried to make it a little bit political, and he moved right off it. It was really, really, really good. You'll want to hear it. And again, that coming up following the bottom of the hour. Plus, Jake Tapper, more on Jake Tapper out there being interviewed about a variety of things. And then James Comer on the auto pen scandal, saying that the 4 Biden staffers that they're bringing in for transcribed interviews have all got lawyers. And so that will be transcribed interviews. So after they do the transcribed interviews, they're going to bring them to testify before Congress. Because transcribed interviews means that's behind closed doors. And I guess they'll see what they get then and then see whether they bring them. Because transparency in this, when you think about it, and Jake Tapper is right. We said it. When he said it, I went, yeah, we said it earlier. We said it, I don't know, a few weeks ago, where I went, this is bigger than Watergate now, much bigger than Watergate, because it's about a shadow government. There's nothing bigger than that the elected president of the United States is not making the decisions. And this is only going in one direction. There isn't any, you really don't see. There may be somebody trying. Oh no, who tried to defend it? The View. The View may try to defend the Biden administration, but nobody really goes there for critical thinking analysis at all anyway. So we'll get to what James Comer had to say and a whole bunch more. Oh, did you see Chris Cillizza, the liberal writer? Is he still with the Washington Post? I don't even know anymore. Did you see over the weekend somebody defaced his Tesla? We'll get to that, too. He talks about that. Oh, we got so much to get through before we get out of here today and get out of here tomorrow. So many audio cuts. So many audio cuts, so little time. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. A supporting document is a document generated or received by a motor carrier in the normal course of business that can be used by law enforcement to verify a driver's logs. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, including receipts for meals, lodging, and fuel, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier-assigned identification number or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. This from Fox News from the book Original Sin. President Joe Biden's aides considered First Lady Jill Biden one of the most powerful first ladies in history, according to the book Original Sin by Jake Tapper and Axios political correspondent Alex Thompson. By proxy, the First Lady's top aide, Anthony Burnell, became one of the most influential people in the White House. Tapper and Thompson said in their new book about Biden's cognitive decline and the administration's alleged cover-up. He would not be welcome at my funeral, a longtime Biden aide told the authors. Operating in a White House anchored in loyalty, Burnell wielded loyalty as a weapon to weed out the defectors, Tapper said. He considered loyalty to be a defining virtue and would wield that word to elevate some and oust others at times fairly and at other times not. Are you a Biden person? He would ask West Wing aides. Is so-and-so a Biden person? The regular interrogations led to some colleagues to dumb him the leader of the loyalty police, they wrote in Original Sin. During the pandemic, Biden traded the campaign trail for lockdown. Two aides, Brunel and Annie Tomasini, found their way into Joe Biden and Jill Biden's pod, shifting the power dynamic of Biden's so-called Politburo, the group of advisors who steered Biden's political orbit. Tapper and Thompson described the intensely loyal duo as taking on an older brother and little sister vibe. Brunel even had the title of deputy campaign manager, which Tapper and Thompson said was unusual for a staffer to espouse. The duo were the masterminds behind loading a teleprompter for Biden ahead of a local interview, a misstep that followed Biden's campaign. The significance of Brunel and Tomasini is a degree to which their rise in the Biden White House signaled the success of people whose allegiance was to the Biden family, not to the presidency, not to the American people, not to the country, but to the Biden theology the authors wrote. That's a quote actually from the book. Tapper and Thompson said it was difficult to find many Brunel defenders and described him as using his power to cast out potential heretics. As Brunel earned a reputation for trash-talking aides, some even described him as the worst person they ever met. Brunel and Tomasini took on some of the resident staffers' roles in the White House. Tapper and Thompson said the aides had all-time access to the living quarters with their White House badges reading Res, very uncommon for an aide to the First Lady. When the Biden campaign began gearing up for a re-election campaign, and some voiced their fears about his age or battleground state polling, Brunel and other senior staffers reacted dismissively about Vice President Kamala Harris launching a bid. Brunel is quoted in the book as having said, "You don't run for 4 years, you run for 8. He had already begun planning the First Lady's 2025 international travel schedule. Tapper and Thompson said Brunel worked overtime to elevate Jill Biden's profile and glamour, freely criticizing her looks and outfits and even calling her Jill. According to the authors, Jill and Brunel worked in tandem, keeping score of who was with them and who was against them." Wow. This is all leading just in one direction. We'll hear more from Jake Tapper coming up following the bottom of the hour. We'll hear from James Comer and who they are going to do transcribed interviews with, who was around the president, who they suspect of using the auto pen, and the fact that they've all lawyered up.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And I'm Gary McNamara, along with Eric Harley, who has the morning off. All right, before we get back to the audio cuts with Jake Tapper and James Comer and everything else, I just wanted to take an opportunity to play this audio. I just happened to come upon it, and I listened to it earlier, and I went, this is really good. And I figured what it was going to be was the opposite of what it was. And it was Frank Luntz talking about Trump and his address to the graduating class of 2025 at West Point. And I thought, just like the mainstream media, they bring up, well, Trump shouldn't have said that. He said this. Completely the opposite. Here's what he had to say. Listen to this.
It's something that no other president has done. First off, they only come every 4 years. So you got the Secretary of Defense. You have the head of the Joint Chiefs. There are people who come, Secretary of, I believe Secretary of State also shows up. So the president only comes once every 4 years. And President Trump wanted to do this. And of course, West Point will welcome the president if the president wants to come. But he did something no president had ever done, which is he recognized cadets from the podium for their exceptional and extraordinary leadership, for their truly almost unimaginable capability to get things done, both intellectually, militarily, and physically. And what I enjoyed most is that he invited them to come up to the podium and say a few words as the ultimate recognition of what they had achieved and what they were about to do. And that's never been done before. And the cadets absolutely loved it because it said that they matter. West Point as an academy produces the finest young men and women in the country. They do it through training. They do it through character. They do it through an educational background that is so broad and so comprehensive. And to recognize those cadets personally for their achievements was really special, and the cadets loved it.
He did it, of course, in his own way. You heard the remark about trophy wives, drag shows, talking about the former president wearing a hat. None of that was included in your analysis as someone who was there, Frank, and that's why we wanted to bring you on, to have a sense of not only how it went over for people who were there, the cadets and their families, but also to get a sense of how political this actually was and how positive or optimistic it may or may not have felt while we were there. Are we paying attention to all the wrong things?
Well, remember that cadets cannot discuss, they can discuss, but they cannot exhibit partisan behavior, and they don't. And what's amazing about these young men and women is that unlike Harvard, and I get yelled at for doing this, but I'm doing it anyway, unlike the other universities who stage protests, unlike the attempts of other students to disrupt and prevent the exchange of ideas, at West Point, there is an attitude of respect, a commitment to decency and civility. And in the end, they want to hear every opinion of every individual, and they do not wish to engage in partisan politics. So that what the president says, they saw as entertaining, they saw as being enlightening, but they don't come to a conclusion because they're there to learn. They're not performers. They're not about showing their politics and their partisanship. They're there to represent the academy and, most importantly, to defend the Constitution. And that's the thing I wish that your listeners really understood. A cadet doesn't take an oath to the president, doesn't take an oath to the country even. They take an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that's what makes this so special. And that's why I was so happy that it was the president, not just the Secretary of Defense or not just the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, that the president wanted to be there to say thank you to the cadets from a grateful nation. And to me, that's what we should be focused on.
Frank Luntz. Wow. That was just great. And I guess you could make the argument, I could, because I'm always parsing words, when he said, they swear the oath to the Constitution, not the country. Same difference. They're not saying that they'll protect the Constitution of Iran. It's the Constitution of the United States, but we understand the point that he was trying to make. But that's just greatness, just absolute greatness about the cadets at West Point. All right, let's get to some of the other stuff. This is audio cut number 1 from Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson talking about their book. And Jake Tapper here calls out Dems and their institutions and said, really, I believe this is the audio cut where he says, they're not changing at all. This hasn't affected them in the slightest, as we have said. Here we go.
I don't like what the Democrats did when it came to Joe Biden and hiding his the limitations of his abilities. I do think that Democrats, obviously, their approval ratings are in the toilet. And I think that one of the reasons they are is because Democrats just spent 4 years arguing that the border was fine, inflation was not a problem, and Joe Biden was up to the job. And I think that 4 years of that message was really harmful. I think there are other reasons, too, why Democrats have damage themselves, not just Democrats, by the way, but institutions in general, the media, health organizations, universities, et cetera, having to do with the failure to acknowledge certain realities, whether it's having to do with riots after the George Floyd murder or having to do with COVID restrictions that, shutting down schools, and on and on and on and on. I think there are a lot of reasons why there are crises in confidence in the news media, in Democratic Party, in institutions. And I think all of it needs to be hashed out, acknowledged, and discussed. I mean, but in terms of the Democratic Party, it's tough to win elections if people don't have faith that you actually care about them or are listening to them. And I think the Biden deception is one of the reasons people have lost confidence.
I was listening. I played so many audio cuts of him earlier. There was one where he said, "Nobody's changing. The Democrats aren't changing." But this is an audio cut here where he defends himself. Okay.
In terms of the left, it's a money grab. I mean, that's not the case. It's not. This is. I don't want to get into where my money comes from, but I'm. CNN is my main job, and that's where my main source of income by far. Very few people write books to make money. You write a book because you want to say something, you want to have a legacy, you want to uncover something, you have a message you want to get out there. I don't think people write books about Joe Biden to make money. We are gratified that people are buying this book.
That's a good point.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was Stephen A. Smith cut in that audio cut for some reason. Well, I don't know. They also did it to CYA. But, yeah, I mean, the left's now, this is a money grab for you because everybody sees the hypocrisy on the left and right. But, yeah, he does make, I saw something, he makes $7 million a year. Even Jake Tapper isn't a billionaire. The other thing I want to make sure we get in, I'm going to play this James Comer cut because we've talked about, original sin and the Biden scandal and everything else and hiding the shadow government, covering up for Joe Biden's cognitive state. And as you know, James Comer is going to investigate all of this and is going to call aides in for Joe Biden. Here he is on Fox News talking about it, what they're going to do.
The four staffers aren't well-known staffers. These four staffers operated behind the scenes. But while we're starting with them, Sean, we believe these are the staffers that were responsible for using the auto pen. Someone got documents and manually placed them in the machine and pressed the power button to sign Joe Biden's signature. That was not Joe Biden. That was done by staffers. That would be done by any staffer. So we believe and have good reason to believe these are the four staffers that were responsible for that. We want to ask them, who gave you the authority to use Joe Biden's signature? And we'll go from there. Obviously, we believe that some of the names like the chief of staff and perhaps the first lady were involved in a lot of the decision making. If that's where the trail leads, then we'll bring them in as well. But we're going to get answers to all the questions that every American deserves answers to. But again, we're going to see where the trail leads. We followed the money. We found the shell companies. We found the bank accounts. We're going to do the same thing with this auto pen. Who was giving the authority for use of the auto pen? Remember, Sean, there was more activity in the last 100 days of the Biden administration than the first 3.5 years of the Biden administration. Many of the far-reaching executive orders were signed during the last 100 days, and they were all signed by the auto pen. We don't believe that you can sign a legal document with an auto pen. If I issue a subpoena, I have to fly to Washington, D.C. to manually sign my signature on that subpoena. Anything pertaining to the law has to be signed by a person. We know the auto pen was used. What I can tell you tonight is the four staffers that we've asked to come in for transcribed interviews, they have all lawyered up. They are taking this very seriously, and this is going to be a battle to.
There you go, James Comer. And he said they're calling in low-level staffers, and this is complete speculation on my part. But the first thing I thought of was, that's who you call in first. because you call in the low-level staffers to see if they were ordered to do something. If they come in and all take the fifth, then you give them immunity from any type of prosecution, and then you move up the ladder. You don't start with the people at the top who may have been giving the orders. You start with the people at the bottom who are receiving the orders, and then you move up. That's what I would guess is happening here. But this is going to be fascinating as they go through point by point. I mean, this is a mystery. This is a scandal mystery, and it has to do. And as we said a couple of weeks ago, the thing that's fascinating about this is something that people would watch on TV. Could you imagine a movie, The Shadow Government, how a president was elected and was too infirm to run his own presidency, and so his unelected aides around him took over, and they ran the country. I'd watch it. And that's what makes this so dangerous for Democrats. It's really interesting, and it's very easy to understand. It doesn't get into a lot of the legal minutia terms. It's very easy to understand. People elected Joe Biden. He didn't have the cognitive ability to run the country, to run the White House. So unelected aides did it for him, and his family enabled it. Whoa. The shadow government. We'd watch it as a drama, right? Watch it as a movie, made-for-TV movie. This will get a lot of interest because everybody's wondering who was running the country. That's all you have to say in all this. Republicans, who was running the country? Who was running the country? Now, some Republicans have asked that already. In the media, they've asked it. And you haven't had Democrats come back and say, well, absolutely, it was Joe Biden. Because of that silence, they know they can't defend him on it because as President Obama, former President Obama once said, never underestimate the ability for Joe Biden to F things up. So here we are. And it's until those questions are answered, the mystery remains. And when the mystery remains, you have people that are very curious. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Because our show ends in just another hour. And after our show has completed its entire daily cycle, it becomes our podcast. That's right. We record our show, and as soon as the show is over, you can listen to the show on our Red Eye Radio app whenever you want. It's very convenient, and it's free, and it's very quick. Just download the Red Eye Radio app today. And if for some reason you cannot listen to one of our great radio stations live overnight, we also stream all 5 hours on our Red Eye Radio app. More coming up here following the top of the hour. The International Trade Court, which is a federal court, says the vast majority of the tariffs that Trump has put on are gone. That there's a permanent injunction on that. We'll get to the specifics coming up and more.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.